private investigator. I've got some books, says the Premier. Inside, I have from the United States District Court, Northern District of Illinois.
Last month, a judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking her from making those appointments without...
In the small, often overlooked village of Dalton, Illinois, a political drama is unfolding that rivals the most outrageous reality shows. At the center of the chaos is Mayor Tiffany Henyard, whose controversial leadership, questionable decisions, and string of legal disputes have left this once peaceful town in a state of constant turmoil. If you thought you had seen it all in politics, think again. The situation in Dalton is more dramatic and outlandish than anything imaginable, with public feuds, courtroom confrontations, and public outbursts becoming the new normal. Henyard herself has even been referred to as a dictator by some. The drama is far from over, and the town of Dalton can't seem to talk about anything else. But how did we get here? And why is everyone in town buzzing about Mayor Henyard? Let's break down the shocking developments that have been making headlines for months, and we promise this story is wilder than any political thriller ever written. Tiffany Henyard made history by becoming the first woman to serve as mayor of Dalton. However, instead of being celebrated for her groundbreaking achievement or praised for her supposed innovative leadership, it has been her actions and scandals that have captured the public's attention. From questionable appointments to key positions within the local government to an ever-growing list of lawsuits, Henyard's time in office has been far more chaotic than a model of good governance. And now, the latest twist in this drama is that she is suing the very trustees of the village whom she is supposed to work with to manage the community. Yes, you read that right. Mayor Henyard is suing the individuals she should be collaborating with to oversee the functioning of the village. This legal move is a culmination of months of friction between Henyard and the village trustees, who are tasked with managing the financial and operational aspects of the town. Instead of working together to address Dalton's pressing issues, Henyard has chosen to take legal action, setting the stage for even more conflict and drama. The residents of Dalton are increasingly baffled and frustrated as they watch the town descend further into disarray under Henyard's leadership. But this lawsuit is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to controversy surrounding Henyard. In addition to her legal battles with the village trustees, her tenure has been marred by a series of bizarre appointments to high-ranking positions within the town government. These appointments have raised suspicions and accusations of favoritism and nepotism, with many residents questioning Henyard's judgment and motives for selecting certain individuals for these influential roles. Critics have been quick to point out that these appointments seem more about consolidating power and creating a loyal inner circle than about improving the town or serving the best interests of the community. The town's finances have also become a topic of scrutiny. Many are questioning how Henyard has been managing Dalton's budget and resources. Her spending decisions, particularly on extravagant trips and luxury items, have sparked outrage among residents who feel that their tax dollars are being misused and squandered. The combination of financial mismanagement, questionable appointments, and mounting legal troubles has left Dalton in a state of chaos, with many residents wondering how much longer they will tolerate Henyard's leadership. Perhaps the most troubling aspect of Henyard's tenure has been her increasingly erratic behavior. From heated public outbursts to confrontations with the very people she is supposed to serve, Henyard's conduct has raised serious concerns about her fitness to lead. Public meetings have become tense, with Henyard clashing with residents and even calling the police when she feels threatened. Her inability to accept criticism and her tendency to lash out at those who challenge her authority have only fueled the growing discontent in the town. It's clear that Henyard's time in office has been far from smooth sailing, and her actions have left Dalton divided, with many questioning whether she's capable of leading the community any longer. Despite the mounting controversy, Henyard remains defiant, convinced that she is in the right, and that those who oppose her are simply out to get her. She has shown little remorse for her actions, and instead of attempting to make amends, she seems more determined than ever to hold onto power at all costs. Her relationship with the village trustees has become increasingly strained, and the legal battle between them is only adding to the tension. She continues to push forward with her agenda, even as the public's frustration reaches a boiling point. The tipping point came when an unruly village board meeting served as a catalyst for a firestorm that swiftly spiraled out of control. With tensions running high and emotions boiling over, Mayor Henyard, already under intense scrutiny for her leadership, decided to take matters into her own hands when a scheduled meeting at Village Hall didn't go according to plan. Instead of backing down or attempting to resolve the situation diplomatically, Henyard chose to disrupt another ongoing meeting being held by the village trustees at a local park district facility. Her decision to barge into the meeting was bold, but it only served to escalate the situation as her actions stirred the crowd into a frenzy. When she walked into the meeting, a wave of loud cheers erupted from the audience, not in support of her, but in complete mockery. The crowd's reaction was telling. They weren't cheering for their mayor. They were celebrating the spectacle of her latest outburst. It was a moment of deep humiliation for Henyard, and the level of public disdain for her leadership was palpable. This wasn't just a clash of personalities between the mayor and the board. It had become a full-blown spectacle, with Henyard's actions serving as the latest chapter in the ongoing saga of chaos in Dalton. Actions pushing the boundaries of what many considered appropriate behavior for an elected official, her decision to storm into the meeting was met with jeers and chants, with people shouting and calling out her failures as a leader. The situation grew even more tense, and Henyard's refusal to back down or acknowledge the public's frustration only fueled the fire. In that moment, it was clear that her grip on power was slipping away. Instead of inspiring respect or confidence, Henyard's actions were drawing out more ridicule from those who had once supported her. The chaos in that room was a reflection of the growing divide in Dalton, where Henyard's leadership had become synonymous with conflict and division rather than progress or unity. Her defiant outburst marked a turning point in her tenure as mounting dissatisfaction among residents and trustees reached a boiling point. What was meant to be an opportunity for the town to engage in productive discussion and decision-making had turned into an all-out public spectacle. The meeting, which was supposed to address important matters, became a symbol of the larger issues plaguing Henyard's administration: mismanagement, lack of accountability, and a disregard for the community's concerns. It became clear that Henyard's time as mayor was increasingly untenable. Her actions in that meeting only pushed her further away from the people she was supposed to serve. Her attempt to reclaim control over the situation by storming into the meeting backfired spectacularly. It became yet another example of her erratic behavior, alienating both the public and the very officials she was supposed to work with. The cheers and chants in the crowd weren't just directed at her leadership. They were a reflection of the growing frustration that had been building for months. It was clear that Henyard's days in power might be numbered. As tensions reached their peak, it was impossible to ignore the growing sense that Dalton was at a crossroads. Henyard's leadership hung by a thread. The chaotic scene at the Park District facility was just the latest chapter in a saga of missteps and controversies that had plagued her administration from the very beginning. The future of Dalton was now at stake, and with every public outburst and disruptive move, Henyard only deepened the divide between herself and the community she had promised to serve. The chaos surrounding the meetings in Dalton began when the village trustees decided to shift their meeting to the Park District building, after the Illinois Attorney General's office determined that Village Hall wasn't large enough to legally accommodate the residents who wished to attend. While the trustees complied with the guidelines, Mayor Tiffany Henyard insisted on holding the meeting at Village Hall, even though it was clear that only a limited number of people could fit. When only 2 trustees showed up, the session at her meeting quickly fell apart, and tensions escalated. This chaos only made things worse, further inflaming an already frustrated Dalton community. With every new controversy and misstep, Henyard's leadership grew more and more untenable. The town of Dalton found itself at a crossroads, uncertain of what the future held as the once promising mayor continued to push the limits of what was acceptable in leadership. After months of political infighting, the town of Dalton was on edge, and Mayor Tiffany Henyard's leadership was increasingly scrutinized. She was accused by detractors of being power-hungry, running Dalton like a one-woman show rather than fostering a collaborative environment. One irate resident even compared her leadership to something out of a crazy TV show, likening her to cartoon character Timmy Turner with fairy godparents, illustrating just how out of touch the community felt with their mayor. This kind of behavior hadn't been seen in Dalton in decades, and residents were growing more disillusioned. "I've lived in Dalton for 30 years, and we've never been in the public eye like this. Please take this youngster out of office," a concerned resident said. This outburst, was a direct reflection of the growing sentiment that Henyard's actions had only embarrassed the town, causing Dalton to be in the public eye for all the wrong reasons. When Henyard finally arrived at the Park District meeting, the response from the crowd was far from respectful. It wasn't just a disagreement, it was a resounding rejection. Many in the crowd turned their backs on her, showing their utter disdain for her approach. Henyard, clearly frustrated and losing control of the situation, attempted to shout over the noise, accusing the trustees of corruption and insisting that the meeting was hers to run. However, the community had already made its stance clear, and no one was willing to entertain her claims. For 7 long minutes, Henyard tried in vain to regain control, shouting over the applause and jeers of the crowd. But ultimately, her efforts failed, and she was forced to leave, unable to command any real authority. The entire scene was a humiliating defeat for the mayor, highlighting just how deep the divide had become between her and the residents of Dalton. Her inability to take responsibility for the mounting tensions or the chaos she had helped fuel only further alienated the very people she was supposed to serve. The animosity between Henyard and the trustees had been growing for some time, especially as she made key appointments to important village positions, including police chief, village administrator, and village attorney, without obtaining the necessary board approvals. This blatant disregard for protocol was a serious violation of governance, and the trustees could not let it slide. Their frustration culminated in a court case where they sought to halt Henyard's unauthorized appointments. The judge ruled in favor of the trustees, issuing a restraining order that prevented Henyard from making further appointments and required her to obtain prior approval from the board for any future decisions. This ruling was a significant moment in the ongoing power struggle between Henyard and the town's leadership, solidifying the growing resistance against her administration.